So we're standing in Oregon's fastest growing county, and I'm especially pleased that last week the United States Senate, on a bipartisan basis, got together and brought a good dose of common sense to the whole question of government, which is making sure that we take advantage of the opportunity to improve our infrastructure. You just cannot have big league quality of life with little league infrastructure. Now, the fact is, this community knows that growing communities have growing needs, and that requires growing attention. And as I touched on, a lot of people think DC can't agree on whether to order water or lemonade. But the fact is, our communities need real investments now to deal with the punishing wildfires, the horrendous drought, the lack of rural broadband for schools, and a whole lot more. So, just to outline a few items, I'm not going to tell you that Kumbaya just broke out all over DC, but I think it does show that what we call the Oregon Way, and you're going to hear from a bunch of speakers now who are going to describe it, means that we can improve the quality of life in Bend and throughout Central Oregon. So here are some of the priorities that are in the bill that got out of the Senate, bipartisan, strong bipartisan vote. First, rural broadband. I think we all know how important this is for folks who are working from home, telemedicine, folks who are trying to get some education online. $65 billion, where we're going to get to the point, if we fully implement this, this country starts to say that broadband is like electricity was decades ago, that you got to have it. It's hugely important for everybody. The bill also has $5 billion from key pieces of my disaster-safe power grid, because we've seen how important it is to secure the power grid from ice and snow in these winter storms and wildfires. We'll hear today about improved drinking water and services for the Confederated Tribes of the Warm Springs, something that I made a special priority. Drought relief, big shot in the arm for farmers and ranchers and communities to respond to the drought. And obviously, reducing wildfire risk is so important, because we know when it's hot and dry, and yesterday it was windy, wasn't as hot, but hot and dry, and somebody drops a match and then you got an inferno on your hands. The bill's got a big chunk of money for wildfire risk mitigation, forest health treatment. So you basically, in English, go out there and clean out these overstocked timber stands, because these are not your grandfather's fires. They're bigger, they're hotter, they're more powerful. And everybody back east says, Ron, what about the bootleg? I said, I want this bill to get us in the business of preventing more bootleg fires in the future. And then, of course, resources for roads and bridges are hugely important, because you got a lot of growth in Deschutes County and throughout Central Oregon. So we now have a terrific group of speakers. We'll start with Mr. Wilson Weewa of the Tribes of Warm Springs to talk about broadband and Western tribal water. Mr. Weewa.
Good morning, everybody. Central Oregon. It's the best place to live is in Central Oregon, and that's evidenced by all the Californians that are moving up here. I want to thank Senator Wyden for coming out here today to Central Oregon. It's always a pleasure when he comes to visit the people that he represents. On behalf of the people of the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, I'm here to thank Senator Wyden for his leadership in addressing the water infrastructure challenges that we are facing on the Warm Springs Reservation. For years, almost a century, we have dealt with harmful and expensive obstacles in water shortage, delivery, and treatment. Our water infrastructure is literally crumbling. Some of the pipes installed in the 1890s that were made of wood and clay are still in use on our reservation. We regularly face low pressure or no water events which trigger boil water notices from the EPA. We are facing a cost of $50 million to upgrade or replace our water system. This is not a cost that can be borne where 60% or more of our population is unemployed. We have worked closely with Senator Wyden on a way to ensure clean water for the people of Warm Springs. He wrote the Western Tribal Water Infrastructure Act to provide tribes like Warm Springs with a federal lifeline. His legislation, supported by Senator Merkley, was included in the Senate infrastructure package. It would provide hundreds of millions of grant dollars to tribes to rebuild their water infrastructure. To us, water is life. Clean water is the foundation to all human life, and certainly so at Warm Springs, where water is sacred. The people of Warm Springs are grateful to Senator Wyden for fighting for us to get us some funds to help rebuild our water infrastructure. We are hoping and praying that the water infrastructure bill is passed by Congress and signed into law, and we want to thank you and the people. I know are very pleased that we are able to make little strides as the bill gets ready to make allocations to us. Yes, absolutely. We're going to turn them into bigger strides. Again, thank you for all your efforts.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Give a round of applause for both teams. Our next speaker is going to be Phil Chang, and he's going to represent the county. And where's Phil? There he is. Great. Phil, thank you.
Okay, let's talk about forest and wildfire. I want to thank Senator Wyden for creating the Secure Rural Schools program many decades ago, or some decades ago, and for keeping it funded for 3 years through renewal in this infrastructure bill. Not only does Secure Rural Schools provide critically needed funding for the schools in our state and for our county roads departments in our forested communities, but Secure Rural Schools changed the relationship between those forested communities and the national forests that exist within them, so that we don't just have to look at forests with a singular focus of timber production. This is good because many of our forests, like the Deschutes, don't have large saw logs to give anymore. It's also really important because what we really need to remove from those forests is dense thickets of small trees and brush that grew up over the past many decades after unsustainable harvests and 100 years plus of trying to exclude fire from fire-adapted forests. So we need to recreate the large, widely spaced pine forest stands that we used to have with an open understory, because that gives our firefighters a better shot at containing wildfire. It's better habitat for key species, and when we get there, we will have enough large trees that we can selectively harvest. So thank you so much to the Senator and for all the members of Congress members of the Senate who voted to include expanded funding for the Collaborative Forest Restoration Program in the infrastructure bill. We have one of the original 10 what are called CFLR projects, Collaborative Forest Landscape Restoration Projects, here in Deschutes County. It's called the Deschutes Collaborative Forest Project. And working with the Forest Service, using those CFLR dollars over the last 11 years, we've treated 120,000 acres surrounding Sun River, Bend, Sisters, and Blackbeet Ranch. And with this continued funding, we can expand upon those treatments, make our communities safer, make our forests healthier, create a whole lot of jobs in the woods. Thank you, Senator Wyden.
Well said. And Give Phil a round of applause too, and folks at the county. And now, because we got a bunch of ODOT folks there waiting to hear about the job site on roads and bridges, we've got Gary Farnsworth.
Well, and I think first I'd like to get Eric King from the city of Bend.
Oh, okay. We're calling some audibles on the order. All right, we're on the same team.
We are all on the same team, yes. And I think we have good proof of us taking a team attitude. And thank you, Senator Wyden, for your advocacy and securing over $60 million to build infrastructure on the north end of Bend in partnership with ODOT and the county. And I think that's a good sort of template for us moving forward. We know as a fast-growing city we need to do our part to pay for infrastructure, but we also have a housing crisis here in Bend, and we need help to keep our housing affordable by keeping infrastructure going. And we need partners with the federal government. And to illustrate some of that, in the city of Bend, over the next 20 years, we have $680 million worth of transportation needs, a funding gap of about $375 million. Water, over the next 30 years, $581 million, $100 million funding gap there. And with our sewer infrastructure, $450 million worth of need over the 20-year period, and $200 million funding gap. So again, we're coming to the table with resources, but we need some help. One of the projects I want to illustrate when we talk about infrastructure and the tie to housing, and as well as just good growth, smart growth, and that is a crossing over our parkway and our railroad to really help expand and look for infill opportunities, development opportunities in our core. And that's the Midtown Crossing project that we are going to be talking to council tonight about. It really is an opportunity to bridge the east and west sides of Bend together, create transportation options for bikers and walkers, and really promote affordable housing in our core. So I think this infrastructure package really helps us tie together multiple goals and helps us create not just growth for growth's sakes, but growth that's creating more sustainable communities. So again, thank you for this opportunity to kind of share the City of Bend's perspective.
Great. Give our regards to all the city folks. And now we do have ODOT manager Gary Farnsworth, and this is such a priority of mine in the delegation, roads and bridges. Gary? Where is Gary? Oh.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, you too.
So, Wilson, I am not from California, but I'm from Chicago. Like so many transplants we have, I've spent most of my life in the Northwest, but grew up there. And I think about, transportation there, but I think about how unique and wonderful it is to be in Oregon and talk about transportation and what we get to do. So I want to thank you, Senator, for the opportunity to be here with you today. And welcome to all of you. Welcome to Region 4 headquarters. Also, on behalf of staff, and as the Senator pointed out, many of my fellow coworkers are here today from different walks of life. Our mechanics, maintenance, engineers, environmentalists, right-of-way, a whole bunch of folks that are very interested in how things play out. And I know you all work your tails off, along with our city partners and the other partners you see represented up here.
Give a big round of applause to all those guys by the wall and the work they do. Thanks, everybody.
We've seen the benefits of what you've done for us, Senator Wyden, and your support of transportation and infrastructure over the years. And you mentioned it, Eric, our North Corridor project, which we received a $60 million federal infra grant for, and I know that the Senator was instrumental in that program. And also, we've taken advantage in our outskirts with the Federal Lands Access Program. Oregon gets the most money in that program of any state in the country, and we take full advantage of it here with our partnerships, which is awesome. For ODOT, for a long time, we've worked with our partners on a lot of things, and the relationships are amazing, but the needs are endless, again, as Eric pointed out, with numbers. So that's why we're so interested in following this investment, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. I'm just going to call it the Act from here out. While we have, our stuff is in pretty good shape, but it takes a lot of money to deal with it, especially for our freight corridors that serve so many, US 97, US 20 out here, and I use US 20 as an example. Most of you probably came in on US 20, which is also 3rd Street, shared with the city. And we just opened bids on a contract, and the costs are continuing to climb tremendously for fixing the pavement, fixing the sidewalks, fixing the signals, adding signals. The costs are going up, and as much as we scramble to bring things together, we can't do this without our federal partners. So I'm so glad that you're here. The Act will boost federal funding for preservation and maintenance by 40% in Oregon over the next 5 years. That is tremendous and so good to see because of the backlog we have. We're always working collectively also to work on reducing emissions. The plans that we put together are headed that direction. The Act will direct $50 million to Oregon for electric vehicle charging stations, and also $82 million for carbon reduction opportunities. And we've already heard about broadband and the power grid and wildfires, and I can tell you, these infrastructure elements, they all start to come together for ODOT. They all matter to us because we don't want to have to deal with these wildfires. We want to make sure the rest of the infrastructure works. Broadband is becoming huge for us in order to manage the system, so that's a big deal. I can go on and on. Natural disasters, 97 is a key route for the Cascadia earthquake event, and we're investing in that, but we need to invest more. We're doing a lot. Our Cascades East Transit District has just put together a new regional plan, and they're pointing out to us how important that is on many fronts, not only giving options, but addressing things like climate. The Act will have discretionary grants opportunities for us. That will help us with transit agencies being able to purchase electric buses, for us to continue doing our wildlife crossings, which also improves safety down the 97 corridor in the wilderness. And then also dealing with a big project we've got coming up for US 97 in Redmond, for example, and these systems all tie together. Clearly our transportation system has no shortage of needs, including safety, and we, our partners in Central Oregon, stand ready to put additional federal funding to work here, maximizing on the current planning we're primed with, the funding that we're already bringing to the table, and the partnership opportunities to advance a complete, robust, multimodal system in Central Oregon. The opportunities are huge and exciting. Our needs to keep up the system is so important, and we couldn't thank you enough, Senator, for what you're doing by bringing the bill to passage in the Senate, but also hopefully getting it over the finish line with the President. So thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you all for listening.
Make no mistake about it, this bill is going over the finish line, period, full stop. And we did roads and bridges. Let's get to our airports because they're so hugely important, and Zach Bass will speak on airport expansion. Oh, here you are.
Good morning, everyone. I wanted to start by pointing out some things that have occurred at our airport. Just like the rest of the region, we have been growing in leaps and bounds. The 4 years prior to the pandemic, we doubled our passenger count. The calendar year in 2019, we hit 1 million passengers for the first time ever at RDM. What we did find, though, is with this growth was quite a bit of strain on our infrastructure, especially the terminal. Then the pandemic hit. I'm happy to let everybody know that just this July in 2020, we had 100,000 people pass through the airport, the same amount that we had in July pre-pandemic of 2019. So we are bouncing back better than the national average by almost 30%. Again, I bring this up because of the strain on infrastructure. So we are about 75% of the way through a terminal area concept plan or pre-design. What we know right now, and just to kind of pique everyone's interest a little bit, is we will double the size of the airport. 75,000 square feet on the second level, 11 jet bridges to accommodate for 737s. And then we got pretty excited, and then we started looking at the numbers. And during that point, we really started closely following the infrastructure bill. And speaking with Senator Wyden and his people, we are happy to say that within the bill currently is $25 billion for airports. They did implement a new feature of $5 billion just for a terminal program. I'll go one level deeper, and within that terminal, that $5 billion, $1 billion is identified for small hubs, which we are. So that allocation means that we don't have to compete with Seattle, Portland, Houston, Atlanta for those dollars. And so we are hoping that this infrastructure bill will help us fund this project. Also in the infrastructure bill, real quickly, is quite a bit of money for terminal control towers. Bend, which is the third busiest airport in the state, if you did not know that by operations, is looking to build a new tower soon, and I'm sure they will be hoping to take advantage of this infrastructure bill too. Between Bend and Redmond, we are busier than PDX by operations. So it's a very big industry here in Central Oregon. A lot of jobs are created from it, and we are excited and happy and give thanks to Senator Wyden and his people for making sure all that is in this infrastructure bill. Thank you.
Really good news about the jobs as well. We got two folks from Labor. We're very proud of both of them. Why don't you guys both come up, and we'll start with Dave Berger, Central Oregon State Building and Construction Trades, and also Garth Finley of the Carpenters Union. Why don't both of you come on up, and we'll start remarks off with Dave. But let's give them both a round of applause representing our working people.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate that. Just like to welcome everybody here. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Senator and staff, for inviting us. I'm Dave Berger. I'm with the Central Oregon Building Construction Trades Council, representing 31 craft unions, apprenticeships, registered apprenticeships. We have some construction workers here supporting this bill, some apprentices. We have a retiree that's drawing some great pension benefits from union labor. And then we have our larger council is the State Building Trades Council, and it oversees thousands of workers across the state. Wages, hours, working conditions are the core of our work, but those only matter if we have jobs. We look at proposals through the multi-craft lens, meaning electricians, carpenters, road construction, all of that. We support the ideas that require skill of a wide variety of tradespeople, and big investments in infrastructure projects. They equal big opportunity for the building trades members across the state. Investing in transportation, water, power, energy, aviation, and communications infrastructure are all well-established sources of good job creation. Infrastructure construction projects take 4 to 5 years to complete, offering many registered apprentices the chance to work their whole apprenticeship career in one project. Senator Wyden's plan would not only create good jobs for Oregon building trades members, but a pathway into registered apprenticeship and training programs for women and people of color. This investment is long overdue, and it was a huge benefit to Oregon's building and construction trades members, and why we applaud Senator Wyden for his infrastructure investment approach. We look forward to collaborating with Senator Wyden, the regional counties and cities, the Oregon State Legislature, ODOT, and the numerous stakeholders that help ensure these investments get done. Thank you.
Good morning. On behalf of the entire Northwest Carpenters Union, thank you for having us here. My name is Garth Finley. I'm a representative with the Carpenters Union. An apprentice trained, 21 years in this brotherhood. And a proud member of the Central Oregon community. The bipartisan infrastructure framework is the largest investment in our nation's infrastructure in a century, and will create opportunities for millions of Americans. This includes thousands of construction workers here in Central Oregon. This isn't just an investment in our roads and bridges, this is an investment in our American union workers who built them. These are the type of investments that our union halls have talked about for decades. Across our state, roads, bridges, dams were built by a generation of carpenters and trades and craft people before me. These projects built careers, communities that grew the middle class. Coming together to pass investments like this will strengthen union jobs and working families in Central Oregon for decades to come. This work is critical to the bridging the urban-rural divide. We're not just building infrastructure, we're building connections. We also know that with expanded investment in projects, there will be more opportunities for apprentices. This is critical for women and BIPOC workers, as David said before me, who are underrepresented in construction. Apprentices like Lucinda Torres, a 6-term apprentice who is a sister in this brotherhood of carpenters from the Confederated tribe of the Warm Springs just north of us, who wished she could be here today to give this, but is working on a data center in Prineville on her career. We hope that members like her will be able to journey out into a long career in construction on projects that are funded through this infrastructure bill. I am so thankful to be here representing the Northwest Carpenters Union. Thank you, Senator Wyden, for inviting us to celebrate and cheer on this critical investment in our future. Thank you for your leadership to get this passed in the Senate. We are watching closely as it heads to the House and onto the President's desk.
Where's our folks from the utility? Okay, great. Come on in.
Well, first of all, I want to begin by thanking Senator Wyden for his efforts and his leadership to include the Disaster Safe Power Grid Act in the infrastructure bill. Electric cooperatives throughout Oregon, we're doing what we can to strengthen our infrastructure and implement aggressive vegetation management programs so things like trees coming in contact with power lines that can start fires are prevented. Also planning for unexpected events, because our priority is to keep our members and our community safe. In this legislation, it provides a significant opportunity for small rural electric cooperatives and utilities to accelerate wildfire mitigation efforts and disaster preparedness. In this legislation, also, very importantly, it provides a small utility set-aside, which is critical to ensuring that matching grant funds are going to be available for small utilities so we can do more to mitigate against disasters and wildfires in rural Oregon. And we're all too aware, very sadly, that these wildfires in Oregon, they've taken many lives, they've destroyed property, and they've devastated communities. And last year, the senator took the time to tour the areas in Oregon devastated by wildfires, and he saw firsthand, and he understood that making the electric grid more resilient to extreme weather events and mitigating for wildfires, it's very expensive. And everybody knows the climate in the West, it's getting hotter and it's drier, and utilities have to work faster to protect against potential catastrophic events. Central Electric Cooperative, we provide service across 5,300 square miles in Central Oregon, and that's a significant area, and much of it is through heavily forested, high fire risk areas. We have thousands of miles of overhead power lines that could be replaced with components made of fire-resistant materials, and again, you mitigate against wildfire threats. And right now, we are implementing a groundbreaking technology called distribution fault anticipation. In this technology, it provides real-time awareness so that we know before our power lines contribute to a wildfire. We can get on it ahead of time. And this is just one of the many wildfire mitigation measures the Disaster Safe Power Grid will assist utilities with implementing. There's other things to secure funding for, like installing weather stations in high fire risk areas so you can constantly monitor the temperature, the humidity, the wind speeds, where feasible, underground, new and existing overhead lines, and then accelerate and enhance the ongoing vegetation management efforts. In this legislation, it will provide an opportunity for Central Electric and other electric cooperatives throughout Oregon to obtain much needed funding to enhance and accelerate our mitigation efforts for disasters and wildfires. The wildfires that Oregonians have experienced over the last year, they really are a sober reminder, and they stress the need and the urgency for this critically important legislation that's been introduced by Senator Wyden. And once again, Senator, I want to thank you for your leadership in rural Oregon.
Dave, thank you. Big shout out for Central Electric, and we thank them. And finally, we have another very important speaker, North Unity District Manager Mike Britton, and they've been doing great work, and they got their hands full these days. And Mike, we really appreciate working with you. Round of applause, folks.
Thank you, Senator, for the opportunity to be here today. And also, thank you for taking the time to visit Central Oregon during the recess. Again, Mike Britton. I'm actually the past general manager of North Unit Irrigation District. I'm now the executive manager, for what that's worth. I'm also past president of the Deschutes Basin Board of Control, which represents the 8 irrigation districts of Central Oregon. We cover over 150,000 acres of farmland and urbanized land here in Central Oregon, with North Unit Irrigation District being the largest district in the basin and second largest in the state of Oregon. The irrigation districts are particularly excited about the opportunity that's being presented through the infrastructure package. The package includes $8.3 billion specifically for Western water infrastructure, and we always hear and have heard for quite some time about the need for infrastructure, not just roads and bridges, but also our important water infrastructure and for our waterways. This $8.3 billion will go to the Bureau of Reclamation. The Bureau, in my opinion, has been woefully underfunded for decades. They do great work, and they've been around since the early 1900s, and we are great partners with the Bureau of Reclamation, which lends itself well to us being able to obtain funding through the infrastructure package through the Bureau of Reclamation. Not to mention that we are also a Bureau of Reclamation district, which means we're under contract with the Bureau of Reclamation here in Central Oregon. Ochoco Irrigation District over in the Prineville area is also a Bureau district, and we'll be looking forward to using some of this funding to improve our infrastructure and make the best, most efficient use of the limited supply of water that we have, not only today, but in the past as well. But as we all know, we're all suffering from unprecedented drought here in the basin, and our farmers really are taking the brunt of the hit of the drought. Many of our farmers in North Unit have planted crops, they've maintained the crops, they've applied fertilizer, they've watered them, but unfortunately, as the summer has gone on, the water supply has shrunk. So we've actually had to reduce the amount of water that our farmers have received, which will likely leave some crops stranded in the field. There's not enough water to go around. They've had to make some tough choices on which crops to continue to water and which ones to leave in the field to die. So the infrastructure package includes $5 billion for drought relief and funding to help farmers, ranchers, and communities respond to the drought. And it couldn't come at a better time. I mean, we are in dire straits and in critical need of an infusion of funding for our guys, not only in North Unit, but the other districts as well. Arnold Irrigation District, just down the road, has been out of water since mid-June, I believe. And again, they have crops in the field, and we'll need some assistance to continue to survive year after year if we continue to have these types of summers. And then lastly, a few years ago, Senator Wyden was instrumental in getting an existing program refunded. We call it PL 566. Is a USDA NRCS program that had been dormant since 2008. And with the help of Senator Wyden and Merkley, they were able to get it refunded. And we've been able to take advantage of that program. We've had nearly $110 million excuse me, coming into the basin as a result of that program. And we've been able to put pipe in the ground, save water, spread the water to farmers and irrigation districts that need it, while also improving stream flow in the rivers and tributaries in our area. So aside from the infrastructure bill, thank you for that, and we appreciate that. Excuse me. Lastly, again, just want to thank the senator and his staff for all the help that they've been providing us. We've met with them regularly in DC and locally, and we look forward to continuing the positive work that the senator's done, but also Want to thank their staff and the people that help make all that happen. Thank you.
So just to wrap up with a couple of very quick points. So you just heard over the last half an hour or so, 9 speakers who are on the front lines strengthening Oregon's economy. And you didn't hear a single one of them say, well, this is the Democratic way to do it. This is the Republican way to do it. People said, this is what Oregon's all about. This is what Central Oregon is all about. It's coming together, tackling big issues, and doing it with urgency. You know, the fact is, and I don't have to tell all of you, and I said in the context of growing community, growing attention, and the like, this is not some kind of abstract question. This is something folks in Central Oregon live with every single day. And I just want you to know it's a great honor to represent you in the United States Senate. Terrific honor to have these folks up here. And you just heard 9 leaders from a whole host of areas that are vital to the economic well-being of Central Oregon spell it all out. They didn't talk a bunch of DC and government